Hello, my name is Dr. David Turgeman from HRC Fertility. I've been asked to help explain the mechanics and the process of a fresh egg donation cycle so that you can better understand how it all works. So, the first thing we do is we really initiate the process by receiving what is called a match letter from the egg donor agency. That really triggers a few things to happen. The first thing is that the egg donor will need to come in for a detailed history evaluation and a physical examination. During that time, we will be asking multiple medical questions, inclusive of medical issues that occur within herself or her family. We'll also obtain information about perhaps travel to areas that may be endemic for Zika virus, a history of sexually transmitted diseases, when the last tattoo or piercing the donor may have had, and also general questions regarding the consumption of alcohol, tobacco, or recreational drugs. Also during that time, what we will do is a physical examination. During that time, we'll do a transvaginal ultrasound to evaluate the number of follicles within the ovaries of the egg donor. We typically expect somewhere upwards of 15 to 20 follicles in total. That will give us a guide that the ovarian reserve looks relatively good. We will combine that with some blood tests, for example, something called the anti-Müllerian hormone level, or AMH level, which is a guide to give us, again, information about the ovarian reserve. The best way to think about this is that all follicles, all eggs produce a little bit of anti-Müllerian hormone. And so the higher that hormone level is, the more anticipated eggs we should expect when the ovaries are stimulated to grow. During that time of the initial consultation, we will do infectious disease screening, as well as typically do a blood work to evaluate any genetic predispositions. For example, cystic fibrosis, that's a specific gene that the donor may not have the disease, but she may carry a trait. And so that's an important thing to evaluate at that point. Once the results of all those testings have come back and are presumably all normal, we will then have the intended parents and the egg donor start legal documents. That's generally a process by which there is, especially in an anonymous situation, intervening counsel to draw up what the legal binding agreement is between both. Once that is completed, generally what we do is we have the egg donor return for further evaluation via ultrasound and blood work to make sure that we're able to start treatment. Once we have that completed, we will begin the process of the stimulation of the ovaries. And at that same time, we will do blood work that allows us to proceed with the egg donation process. That blood work is really dictated and a regulation of the FDA or the Food and Drug Administration. Once we have completed that, or during the process of its completion, we will start the stimulation of the ovaries. This is a medication that we have to give daily for somewhere between 9 and 12 days. During that process, the egg donor will need to come in not only for blood work, but ultrasounds to evaluate the appropriate growth of the follicles and making sure that there's not changes that are needed within the ovarian stimulation protocol. Once the follicles have reached maturity by ultrasound, we are then ready to prepare the ovaries for the harvesting of the eggs. Typically, one or two trigger shots, as we call them, are given, and approximately 35 hours after those medications are given, we're ready to extract out the eggs. That's a very simple procedure that's done under an IV anesthetic, so the donor has to feel no pain. During that process, they feel essentially asleep, and during that time, what we do is we place an ultrasound with a very small needle that is guided into each one of the follicles within the ovary. This is done through the vagina, and so no scars or anything like that are encountered. The fluid from within the follicles, along with its eggs, are retrieved, and then the eggs are identified by the embryologic staff to make sure that the eggs have been captured, and they are then further evaluated for maturity at that time. The recovery of the anesthesia is actually quite quick. We expect that most egg donors will be able to get up and leave within 30 minutes to 60 minutes from the egg retrieval. It's not uncommon to have some cramping after the procedure, and that's simply because the ovaries are much more enlarged than they typically are normally. And then what we will do is typically follow up the egg donor to make sure that she is doing well post-operatively, and that she's not in any need for medications to control pain or nausea or the such. So that's just a quick overview on how the process of egg donation works from a mechanical perspective, as well as the procedural aspects. I hope you found this helpful. Have a great day.